At Relentless Digital, we believe in breaking barriers and driving innovation. That's why we are extremely proud to sponsor the Power Women of the Trades podcast, supporting the voices and success of women in the home service industry. Together, we're creating a future where talent shines, regardless of gender, and diversity thrives. Join our journey at relentless-digital.com and always be relentless in your pursuit of excellence.
This episode of Power Women of the Trades is also brought to you by Forrest Perry of Forrest Perry Digital Marketing. Want to generate more leads for your service business? Trust his team to deliver quality new customer leads and protect your brand online. Check out perrymarketing.com today.
Hello everyone. We want to give a quick shout out to our amazing partner, Rilla, the game changer in the home service industry. Rilla's virtual ride-along software means no more physical ride-alongs. With Rilla, you can code your team virtually 100 times faster and boost your close sale rates like never before. Don't miss out. Join the movement today and watch your sales soar. Visit rilla.com/PWT to learn more.
Welcome to Power Women of the Trades podcast. This show is all about breaking barriers and changing the game. Our guests will feature some of today's most successful female entrepreneurs and other advocates of our industry as well. Because if there's one thing we know for sure, female-led entrepreneurship drives change on multiple levels. We want to empower women in the trade industry like you so you can maximize your potential, stay balanced, achieve long-term success, and claim ownership over your life. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Power Women of the Trades podcast. Today, it's Kailee and Heather. So we are going to be talking about imposter syndrome. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you didn't belong there? Or walked into a meeting and felt like you didn't necessarily have the credentialing to be there? And that's kind of the topic that we're going to discuss today. And I'm going to interview Kailee about her role as the Director of Marketing for Quality Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Electrical, and how imposter syndrome has affected her. And I want to share some of my own experiences about that same thing too. But Kailee, let's start with the conversation we were having earlier about when you get hired into a role that is a bigger role than you were initially expecting out of college. How did that make you feel? How did that shape you into the position that you're holding and doing a fabulous job today?
Yeah, so I would say, for those who don't know me or have heard my story before, I started out as quality with just being the social media and community coordinator. So I wasn't at all in a management role or working with a lot of people besides just filming our technicians, getting pictures, things like that. And so whenever I was 23, so a year after I graduated and worked for quality, I got promoted to marketing manager. So that meant I had a lot more responsibility than just TikTok, social media, our community events, things like that. And so I started working a lot with our vendors and like different people, different places, like our company party, even like planning that. And so I had to very much like prove myself, I felt like, because I was 23, I had a year of experience under my belt with quality and like I had done internships through school and things like that. But I just felt like I had to prove myself even more. And like, I remember Cassie having to tell some people like, she's the one that's making the decision. Like you can trust her with her decision, because they would go back to Cassie and be like, okay, Kailee told me this, but like, is that for real? So I just feel like it made me think like, okay, I can do this, but I'm gonna have to prove myself even more that I can do it, because there's people that might not be like, oh, Kailee has the skills to do that or has their decision-making power to do that.
And then we get in our own heads and are like, well, if somebody else is doubting me, am I really good enough to be in this role?
Right.
And I think that especially plays a huge part for us as women in predominantly male industry, where more and more women are coming in, and it's different than it used to be. It used to be really hard for women to get a role. When I started in this industry, I was really young. And so I not only had age against me or in my mind, but I was wondering, what it was really going to take. And in, other interviews, people have said, how did you get to where you were? And it was just that refusal piece to give up. And you're going to have people question you because of how young you are, or how young I was at the time, or question your ability, or even we get in our own heads, I think. And we question, are we really good enough to be holding the position we're doing or the job that we're doing for the company? And even more so in this field, I mean, I've come up against it where, just like you were mentioning with Cassie, getting questioned, does Kailee really know what she's doing? Well, yeah, the same thing. I've had happen to me in the past too, where, people would say, well, Heather, she's young. I don't want to talk to Heather, like I'd rather talk to you, a man of the company. And it kind of gets in our head and it can be defeating. And I think for all women in this industry, we all have moments of, self-reflection and trying to figure out, how we can bring our best self, and, just never giving up on, that role that you want to hold is so important. And I know there's so many other women that we've interviewed on this podcast that have questioned themselves, and it's empowering to be able to send messages out to women in our industry that, the older you get, the more experience you have, but just because you're young doesn't mean you can't do the job. Just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you don't belong there. And I think continuing to make sure that that message is heard is setting the stage for us going forward, and bringing more women into this industry.
Yeah, I think, and also remembering like we're our own worst critic. And so like we have the skills, we have the experience, we have the knowledge that we've gotten over the years of doing whatever job we're in or the role that we play in the company, that like we just need to know like it's a thought that may be passing your mind, but it's not who defines you. Like your work ethic shows, what you're doing shows. Like I just have to remind myself that sometimes, because I might have made a mistake or something and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I really the one that's right for this role? But it's like one little bump in the road isn't going to define you. Like it'll help you grow, it'll help you get better, which is always.
And we all make mistakes, and you learn from your mistakes, or sometimes the mistakes open up doors that we didn't know were there before. And you can put a label on a job, but it really depends on who you are as a person, because we could hire, let's say you weren't here and we had a different marketing person here. Maybe they're not as driven as you are.
Right.
I mean, I know you personally, and I know that you're going to put 150% into everything that you do, but the vendor may not know that.
Right.
We had somebody else in your role. Who's to say, like it's the same role and you're doing such a fabulous job. And I think one of the things that really helped me in my career early on was not knowing what I didn't know. So because I was, so worried about like, what if I don't know something and I'm not right for this role, or I'd screw up and I'm like, yeah, I'd question myself. I think really what we need to remember is gain as much knowledge as you can. Like never say no to learning something new. And even now I'm in 28 years into my career. And I think I was telling you earlier when we were eating lunch, like I'll hear something that I'm not familiar with. And I'll research it, because that's the last time I don't want to know anything about it.
Right.
It's like, I got to figure this out. I want to know, I just heard about this thing and I want to do some research on it, because I never want to be like that person that can't contribute to a conversation or something in the company that's happening in the company. And I think like for your role, there's a lot of people that do marketing, but marketing is such a broad spectrum of things. I mean, you'll have a million different things that you could continue to learn, but you still belong in your position.
Yeah. And I think who you surround yourself with is also very important, because like the team at Quality is always there to boost me up and be like, you're doing a great job, or like constant words of affirmation to be like, okay, that thought in the back of my head is not true. Like it's not define me or anything. And I feel like I always tell everyone, so my work anniversary is Friday the 23rd of May of this month. So coming up really quick. And I'm always telling people like the person that walked into Quality's doors of May of 2022 is way different than the person that walked into Quality's doors today. Like there's been a lot of growth happening. And I think like that imposter syndrome that's in the back of your head that you sometimes get like also helped me grow as a person. So like, I don't know how I want to word this, but basically it helped me show that like, you got this. You've gotten growth. You've got the tools, the knowledge, what you're doing. So having those people around to boost you up whenever you are feeling down on yourself is also very helpful.
I think that's a really good point that you make, because if you're in a company where you're getting negative reinforcement, then it's, I think, going to be way harder to get that out of your head. I had a role as a controller for a company once upon a time where the culture was not good. And I got made fun of a lot just for, we all have like little idiosyncrasies, but I got made fun of a lot. And it bothered me for a long time, because I think like, why would the person that's like just picking on me think that that's okay? And then it would get into my head and I'm like, well, am I really that bad where like I'm just an easy target for something? Especially in a male dominated industry where, and everybody that knows me personally knows like I can take a joke and like I have a really thick skin, but once in a while, a hurtful comment can start repetitively getting in your head.
Right.
So having a great culture and a good team, I think really helps reinforce the positive parts of that.
Yeah. Also like the podcast, for example, like hearing other people's stories and like how much they've impacted people in the trades industry. I think that's also inspiring to see, because it like makes me my drive go even higher too, of like, I want other people that may be young trying to get into the industry know that like they can do it. It's possible. Like you don't have to listen to that voice in the back of your head saying, no, you don't belong here, because you definitely do.
Yeah. And then, roles evolve and change. So, my first role as a controller has evolved into, into a much bigger role. And when your company is growing or you're trying to grow your company, there's all these things that start flying at you that you're just like, oh my gosh, I have never dealt with this before. Like, am I the right person for that? And the same with like your marketing role. When you started with Quality, we didn't have the podcast. I mean, there's so many other things, and that can get in your head. I think when you are like, oh my gosh, like Cassie will have an idea, or we want to go down, like try something new. I'm just like, oh gosh, we haven't done that before. Okay, fasten your seatbelt. We're gonna just go full speed ahead. And it doesn't mean that I'm not the right person for the job or that you're not the right person for the job. It just means we're going full speed ahead. We haven't gone down this road before, and we might fail and we might not fail. And it kind of goes back to that, like, what if I fail? What if I fail? What if I fail? Well, what if you never try?
Yeah, I love that.
What if you never try? What if you soar?
Right.
What if you take off and you're the perfect person for whatever role that you're in, and you fall in love with that role? And if you never took those first steps, that can be really fearful. Like, gosh, I haven't done this before and I don't want to screw it up. It's okay. Like, if you screw it up, then we'll learn from it and move on.
Right. And there's growth that happens.
There's tons of growth that happens. And if you never look at opportunities as opportunities, then you're going to miss out on so much that you could end up bringing to whatever company you're working for, or even your own personal life, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Because I just feel like having that community is very important to help with the thoughts that go through your head. Like, do I belong here? It's like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
So.
And if you don't know something, then there's so many resources to find out, the things that you don't know. And I think that determination is more important than the fear of, what if you look stupid? Or, like, what if you look like a fool? None of us want to look like a fool.
Right.
But if we think at the end of the day, I was thinking about this a lot over the last month or so, is that like we all have self-esteem. Every single person has self-esteem. Certain things are going to bother certain people that aren't going to bother other people, but everybody has those things that make them really happy and the things that really get under their skin. Everybody does. And I think that we get under our own skin sometimes when we have self-doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, gosh, what a great topic.
I know.
I don't know that we've interviewed anybody who hasn't had that feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
Once or twice in their life. So my biggest message here is, if you felt this way, you're not alone. I think that we've all felt this way at some point in our careers. And just because you may feel that way doesn't mean that you don't belong. And you need to remember, like, we are, by pushing forward, we are setting the table for other women to see, like, nobody just steps into a role and is perfect at it. Doesn't mean that you're not the right person for that role.
Right. And also, don't be afraid to like talk with someone that you, maybe a mentor of yours, being like, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now. Because it always helps to talk it out. Like with me personally, like I can go and talk to Heather or Cassie or anyone that's at Quality and just be like, hey, and they'll like give you that accountability and the positive feedback that you need to like help you get through it.
To reassure you.
Yeah, that's the word I couldn't think of. The reassurance.
Yeah, I mean, it's just reassurance. And we all need that. Like that safe person to go to and be like, I'm feeling really insecure about this piece of it or that piece of whatever, especially with new projects.
Yeah.
I mean, my job doesn't really change that much, but like your job is always evolving. Like marketing campaigns and staying abreast of like what's working, what's not working, and keeping your finger on the pulse of that. I can completely see how that could get in your head and you're like, God, I don't know what to do next.
Right.
But I think getting that positive reinforcement from your peer group, and if that's in your company or if it's, your friends or whatever, people that believe in you, keeps you going and kind of feeds that like, okay, I can do this. I do belong here.
Yes, for sure.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. An interesting topic that I think we've wanted to cover for a while, and we had an opportunity to do it today, and I got to have Kailee here with me instead of Cassie. So this has been fun. Kailee does so much for the company and the podcast. So.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me. It was so fun. I always love to get to sit down and chat.
I do too.
All right. Well,
especially here in person.
Right. Bye.
Bye.
This has been Power Women of the Trades. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review at Apple. And make sure to listen to our other episodes wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.